exploration, affiliation, able to take calculated risks, greater tolerance for uncertainty, more willing to accept challenges, broaden perspective, able to pursue self-actualization. So all this suggests is that for us, a sense of love and safety and comfort is a prerequisite or a foundation for basically everything else that is valuable and worthy to pursue. So in the book, John McCransky and I talk about the need to recover a relational mindset for compassion. We need ways to reconnect with this sense of what it takes to feel a sense of safety and love, to support our efforts to then extend healing and love into the world more inclusively and more sustainably. We need ways to experience this for ourselves first. And the attachment or security priming work suggests that within a meditative practice or a prayer practice, we can repeat and strengthen the sense of secure base over time. And eventually that can establish a number of things. So first is that feeling of comfort, safety, and love. And we could feel that, I think, a little bit even just with the bell exercise. Nobody said the word love, but we said calm, relaxed, allowing. So it feels like maybe within that was a sense of safety or grounding. What that can also do for us is establish a kind of holding environment for all of our thoughts and feelings. So the term holding environment comes out of developmental psychology. A British psychoanalyst named Donald Winnicott coined the term holding environment, and he used that to describe how how parents and caregivers would ideally be present to their children when their children are having a difficult emotion. The child doesn't yet have the ability to regulate their own emotions. They don't yet have the knowledge of how to make sense of their feelings and difficulties. So they depend on a more mature and wise adult to scaffold and learn how to organize their feelings. And they learn emotion regulation strategies, for better or worse, from their adults in their environment. So a holding environment ideally would be one that allows space for a child's feelings, a sense of curiosity and allowing how to work through that. Within meditation, when we establish a sense of safety and love, I think we can also establish this as kind of holding environment for our own patterns of thoughts and feelings that are arising in our life. And with that, as we hold our emotions and feelings within a sense of curiosity and patience, the patterns of mind that we are ordinarily sort of caught in, the sort of that hold a grip on us, can start to unwind and release. Our narrow pattern of perception of ourselves and others can release. And that can allow for a greater sense of care, agency, creativity for others, and also then to be a welcoming presence for others. So that's the kind of framework of what we go through in the book, and what I would like to continue to explore a little bit further today to get a sense of some of this, just to get a taste of it. So how are we doing? Is it making sense so far? You're okay? All right.
I saw the strawberries.
Yes.
And heard the music "Strawberry Fields Forever" from the Beatles.
Oh, beautiful. So that's a wonderful example. So we're going to be doing a kind of meditation where we will call to mind sources of safety and comfort and love. And this also capitalizes on another basic fact about the way our brains work. So there's a perspective in neuroscience and cognitive science that our brains, anytime we think about something, we are simulating it as if it's happening in the present. So my image of the strawberries, you can just take that in for a moment. If beautiful picture, and maybe you have some chocolate sauce with you or something to go with those strawberries. So what do you notice as you're taking in the strawberries? Do you experience anything? You can smell it? Yeah, you can smell the strawberry. You might hear Beatles. Is that a Beatles song? Yeah. The mouth is watering. You can taste strawberries. So just upon seeing an image, the body and the brain is simulating multiple aspects of the fully embodied experience. We heard sound, we heard smell, we heard taste. I recently learned that if we simply hear the word like violin, the brain will, depending on your prior experience, the brain will simulate the sound of the violin in the auditory cortex within the brain. So there's many further examples of this, of the power of visualization and stimulation of experience throughout many parts of the world. Professional athletes will simulate or visualize experiences just to prepare their bodies to perform some kind of activity. So we can do this with sources of comfort and safety and love from anywhere in our life and in our world. Identifying memories or moments in your life that connoted a sense of safety or love or security, like the attachment priming work, as a foundation or support for tapping into your own innate capacities for compassion. So I'm going to give some examples of how we might do this, and I'll do it kind of slow with a little bit of space as I'm describing because of this embodied, grounded cognition idea. Just by hearing them, you might start to notice some memories and some sense of safety or comfort start to come through. So I just want to give us some space to sit with that and see what we notice. So the first possibility, and again, we're using these memories or ideas for simulating connections to care. The first possibility would be a caring moment. So a simple memory of care from any time in your life. It could be a moment with a family member or a teacher. A moment when somebody was just present to you in a kind and welcoming way. Yes?
Well, I got lost in Michigan by a lake, and they were out looking for me, and my older sister found me. I was like 4.
Yeah.
And when I walked into the cabin, and my mother was there with her arms around me,
Yeah.
that was very comforting.
Yes, so a very specific memory, and it can be just like that, a very specific situation and particular memory. So it doesn't need to be the whole relationship, just that one moment. Yeah, it's beautiful. And that sounds like a really powerful one. It could also be something it doesn't have to be a particularly like grand thing. It could be something that just happened within the past week, possibly. A memory of somebody greeting you in a kind way, maybe a sense that you felt as if they really noticed you or appreciated you, feeling of being seen in a moment. Somebody told me when learning this practice, he recalled his grandfather teaching him how to hit a ball off of the t-ball post when he was maybe 5 or 6. And he said he hadn't thought about it for 70 years. But sort of this process helped him to reconnect with that. So just some simple, caring moment.
Are you wanting us to share those now?
You could just sort of in your own being, see if something comes to mind. A second option would be benefactor. So it might not be the specific moment, but just a relationship or a person that's particularly meaningful to you. family member or friend, teacher. Might also be somebody that you actually never met, but their work and their way of being in the world was an inspiration for you. A writer, a musician, an artist. And by them coming to mind, it feels supportive or inspiring to you. Third one could be any spiritual figure or divine energy from any spiritual tradition that you have a connection with. So it could be some figure or energy from Christian tradition, or it could be from some other world tradition. So if you have a sense of connection to something like that, really encourage you to use that as a resource within the meditation, if you want to. Also, any of the other options are also wonderful. Still, none of those are quite connecting for you. There's other things we could consider, like a pet. A moment with a pet, or maybe a place out in the world that feels safe and welcome and nourishing, or maybe a particular piece of music or artwork. It might also be noticing care happening where you're not the central person who's the target of care, but you're noticing it happening between others. Just sort of noticing a quality of ease or peace or joy happening in the world, and being able to appreciate that could work. Yes?
I could use that with benefactors for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then maybe also a particular hobby or activity. I had a student share with me, we were doing this practice in the class at SOU, and the student is a scuba diver, and he shared after doing this practice that he was able to reconnect with the feeling of scuba diving just through the practice while sitting in the classroom. And it makes sense. His brain has simulated that experience, has experienced that many, many times. And so by reconnecting with it through the practice, the brain is reproducing a kind of brain state that occurred when he's actually scuba diving, just here in the space now. So we can find each our own way of tapping into this, a caring moment, a benefactor, a spiritual field, spiritual benefactors, whatever feels supportive to you. So, you all have something that you could identify that could work for the practice? You only need one. And it's actually best to pick one. So I gave a lot of options, so your mind might be kind of like working kind of hard. And you're welcome to, afterward, you can keep going. You can explore and try many ways of doing it, but at least for this moment, for now, see if you can just choose one to work with. And we'll call it to mind in the next meditation, and we'll call it to mind as if it's just like we did with the strawberries. Simulating it in the brain and the body as if it's present here with us. Okay. So that's the next step. You feel up for it? Are you ready? If you need, I know we've been sitting now for a little while. If you need to stand or move around or stretch a bit just to help your body feel relaxed, please go ahead and take a moment to do that. taking advantage of that. So we'll just take a little breather for a moment before we start. Okay, yes, Alan? I'll check with Mike afterwards to see if there's a way to disseminate them. Or I can also take emails and just share them, that's easy. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give it a shot. So again, just picking one benefactor option and we use. So we'll start by finding a relaxed, comfortable posture. And for meditation, you can be seated in a chair like most of you are, but it's also okay if you need to stand. You can stand, or some people like to lie down. So there doesn't need to be one particular way, whatever feels nourishing and relaxing for you at this moment. And we've been going through a lot of conceptual ideas, so your mind might be kind of a little bit active. So see if you can take a moment to feel your energy and attention drop from your head and thinking mind into the body. So just bringing your awareness down into the body and feeling the connection with the chair, floor, and relaxing into that for a moment. And you might also notice the feeling of the breath. And relax into that a bit. And then bring to mind your caring moment or benefactor. Bringing it to mind not as a distant memory, but as if it's here now. As if that person or being is present with you. Taking joy in you. Wishing you deeply well. The person or being is present, happy that you exist. And wishing you deeply well. Sensing you in your goodness, in your deep worth. Beyond any judgment or fleeting impression. And you're held in this sense of warmth and love. And notice the qualities of love or warmth from within. Noticing the loving energies or qualities that come with this experience. A sense of ease or peace. However it is for you. And explore relaxing into those qualities. Letting them infuse your mind and body. Letting your mind come to rest in this sense of warmth and care. Sense of deep allowing. And we can let the image or visualization gently fade into the background, while letting the felt sense of warmth and care to continue to resonate. Allowing the heart and mind to settle, fall open like the sky. Letting everything be. So we can gently come back to the group. So there was a moment in the instruction of that practice to notice the felt qualities or energies. And I named a few like ease, warmth, perhaps. So So I'd like you to invite, if you could just name what you noticed. What loving energy or quality did you notice? And could you name it with a word or two?
Acceptance,
Acceptance,
comfort,
comfort,
safety,
safety,
Gentleness,
gentleness,
gratitude,
gratitude,
Peace.
peace,
Caring.
caring,
the sense of being seen,
being seen,
security,
security,
Also gratitude.
gratitude again, yes.
love. Did we say love?
Not yet, yeah, good one. Love, yeah.
Happiness.
Happiness, yeah, joy. Sometimes people will also say a sense of kind of healing energy, perhaps a feeling of being blessed. So there's, again, an important thing to notice within the practice. It's not that the person or being like walked through the door and came in and like put something into you in the moment. But similar to what happens with the bell experience, the field of care or benefactor experience is, for a moment, interrupting our ordinary flow of thoughts and perceptions or identification with kinds of fleeting judgments, and then drawing out our own capacities, our own deeper human nature of care and compassion and well-being, or our own sense of compassionate reality. And it's just helping us to tap into that briefly for a moment. So those qualities are imminent. They're available in a fresh and embodied way here and now. And we can start to taste that a little bit with the practice. Now, it's not always so free and easy. It's possible that maybe there was some difficulties that you noticed within the practice. Did anybody notice anything difficult that you would be willing to share? Maybe a distraction or some judgment, anything at all?
My cell phone going off.
Your cell phone? Maybe you feeling bad that the cell phone went off?
Just a little embarrassed.
Embarrassment? And then there was one over here, yeah?
as soon as you said pick one person,
Yes.
my mind wanted to, realize, do a little inventory. I mean, I focused on one person, but then it kept, when I distracted myself, it was to, oh, and there's this person, and there's that person, there's
Yeah.
that, et cetera.
Yeah. And yes.
I had a similar experience. I wanted to ask you, was it okay if I had more than one person? Because
Yeah.
it made me feel extraordinarily blessed. It made me be aware of the important moments from a variety of sources.
Yes. I think it's totally fine to use a multiplicity of experiences and peoples even within one practice. Sometimes when first being exposed to it, people will describe that as a difficulty or distraction, that the mind is kind of coming up with too much, so it would be helpful to pick one. But if it feels like giving you that sense of blessing to connect with, then absolutely. Okay, so I'd like to, again, draw on a little bit of psychology to help unpack this a bit more. So from the perspective of attachment theory and also some other work on experiences of difficulties around compassion in particular, this practice can help us tap into moments of joy and gratitude and love, as many of you described, but because of our life experience and cultural conditioning, it can also evoke reactions and patterns of mind that are not so pleasant and maybe uncomfortable. So from an attachment theory perspective, there's a concept called internal working models. And we can have these kinds of models of ourselves and the world and relationships in general. And there may be particular narratives or models of ourselves that feel a kind of vulnerability or a kind of distrust of care. So that when we come into a kind of intimate connection of care, because of past relationship harms or difficulties, we may not feel comfortable engaging in this kind of connection to compassion. Aspects of ourselves that attempt to manage care, for example, by anxiously clinging to it or even avoiding it. There's also some really wonderful work by a colleague, Paul Gilbert, based out of the UK, and he's done a lot of important work around shame and compassion, and what he's found is that he developed a scale for measuring this, that people have particular fears around receiving compassion. So this is like an example of that, a statement like, I worry that people are only kind and compassionate if they want something from me. So a kind of judgment about another person's intent to provide care or kindness. Another example, if people are friendly and kind, I worry that they will find out something bad about me that will change their mind. A kind of sense of self that maybe doesn't really feel deserving of this kind of care. So when we engage in a practice of security and love and comfort like we did just a moment ago, yes, it can kind of help evoke this sense of warmth and compassion, but because of our life experience, there might be other difficulties or senses of a self that get activated, that then take our attention away from the practice or make the practice feel difficult. So what I also want to suggest is that that's very much a kind of normal or expected part of the process. And that what we can do in the meditation is we notice that more and more, notice difficulties that are taking us out of the practice. We can recall that we are safe here. We're in, here in particular, we're in a supportive social community. We're in a relatively safe space here in the room. And we also have choice of whether, to engage in the practice or not, but we can recall that the quality of warmth and love that we're accessing is part of our fundamental nature. It's ultimately trustworthy and reliable, and it can be a kind of host or holding environment for any reaction that comes up. The sense of compassion and warmth is our deeper nature or our deeper reality that can be the holding environment for any reaction that arises. So we can recall that, remember that. So another example that helps to point this out, I have this image here on the screen. Can anybody see what's in the image?
A face.
I heard a horse, I heard a face. Anything else? A Dalmatian. Yes. So this is a classic example of a kind of visual illusion from psychology of perception and how the brain processes visual information. So there is what looks kind of like a Dalmatian here, like dipping its head down in a park to get some water, and here's the legs here. So this is an example of when we have some kind of ambiguous information that we don't fully know what it is, the brain will fill in the gaps. It'll fill in details based on our prior experience to make sense of and make meaning of it. And the interesting thing is once we've seen the Dalmatian, it's very hard to unsee it.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting kind of way of pointing out something that happens within the caring moment meditation. We call to mind a feeling of care, but based on our past experience, our mind might start to fill in further stories or details about if I allow myself to really settle into this, something bad might happen. Or this isn't fundamentally safe, or I'm not deserving of this, or I should be focusing on others, I should be extending care out to others rather than receiving it. these are kinds of internal messages that people have shared in relation to the practice, or we can kind of know based on research around difficulties with attachment. Our brain is drawing upon those past relational memories and also cultural messages, and in a way reacting to the meditation in a way that makes it feel difficult. But again, we can recall that just like with the bell, the sense of a caring moment, it's helping to evoke our own capacities that can be a kind of holding environment for any pattern of thought or feeling. Any pattern of thought or feeling can be gently allowed and welcomed, and then we can eventually be released from the grips of those perceptions and sorts of fears or models of ourselves. Here's another way of making sense of that. So this concept, the circle of security, comes from a group of psychotherapists based out of Spokane, Washington, at Gonzaga. One of the professors was there where I did my undergrad work. And they use this model to help explain attachment theory concepts in a very simple, quick way. And essentially a parent is acting as like the secure base, and depending on where the child is around the circle, they have different needs. So when they're out exploring, they need the parent to watch over them, delight in them, enjoy with them. When the child is feeling upset, they need the parent to welcome them coming, to delight in them, to comfort them, to protect them, help organize their feelings. So I think the meditations that we do can help us to become a holding environment, a kind of secure base for all of our patterns of thought and feeling. Like our thoughts and our emotions are like the little children on the circle. But we don't need to get sucked into being identified with thoughts, but we can become the secure base and safe haven for any of our experience. Okay, so that's kind of some context for understanding and relating some of the challenges that come up from the meditation. Would you be willing to try it again? Mm-hmm. Are you up for doing one more? A brief version of it? Okay, we have time, so you can also take a nap if you prefer. It's okay. I won't even know. I won't even be aware.
You might know.
Snoring could be important.
Okay, so let's give it a shot. And you can use the same resource, the same caring moment or benefactor if you wish. If it felt like it was working for you, you can keep going. Or you can try something new, or you can, like we heard, you can try using a kind of field or kind of array of caring people if you wish. Okay, so again, just taking a moment to find a relaxed, supportive posture so that the body feels at ease and also awake. And take a moment to come down from the thinking mind into the body. Noticing the support of the chair or the floor, and the grounded feeling of the body within. And then simply relaxing into that feeling a bit. Then bringing to mind your caring moment or benefactor, not as a distant memory, but as if that person or being is here, present with you. Taking joy in you. Wishing you deeply well. And sensing you in your deep goodness and your deep worth, beyond any judgment. And notice the felt energy, love, acceptance, joy. However it is for you, explore relaxing into that. Those qualities draw you into them more and more. Perhaps a little bit more deeply than before. See if you notice any distraction or difficulty might be arising. Some doubts about the caring moment, some distrust or discomfort. Anything at all. So gently noticing and allowing that thought or sense of self to be gently welcomed. To be allowed to have the space and time to be here. Experience the sense of love and allowing. Some further difficulty or distraction arises, frustration or confusion, or it could be noticing the feeling that comes with it, and allowing it to be gently welcome in this space of care and love and warmth. Release the images or visualizations, letting the benefactor to caring energy and loving quality to continue to resonate. Opening the heart and mind to fall gently open, like space. Letting everything be. Letting the mind be drawn more and more into the sense of spaciousness and warmth that is already here. Okay. So I'll just share one other concept and then open it up for some questions or some sharing generally. Within the practice, there's that moment of noticing the difficult thought or feeling or sense of self that's kind of resisting the practice a bit. And it can feel like, for me, and I think others I've talked to, there can be a little bit of tension there. Like, there's a kind of energetic tension where it might feel like, I don't really want to welcome this feeling or this sense of self as just a thought or feeling. There's some kind of like tension there. There's a research study from I think first in the 60s, and there were some iterations of it later. But it was a study of infants' visual perception. And the researchers put babies on a table, and half the table had the checkered cloth and the other half had a glass plate. So the babies would crawl up to the edge, the apparent edge, where there was the drop of the cloth, and they would stop. And the researchers were taking this as evidence of the infant's capacity for depth perception. They could see the drop, and so they stopped. And for me, it feels like this a little bit within the meditation when we notice a difficulty and there's some resistance. It's like we want to stop right there at the edge. It feels more safe to just be where we ordinarily are, to be identified within our thoughts and feelings. It feels kind of strange to like welcome our thoughts and difficulties into the space. There's a second part to the study, though. So when the child's mother was on the other side and expressing joy and curiosity, the baby was able to crawl onto the glass half of the table with some confidence and joy. So I think the benefactor practice is like this. It's giving us a sort of sense of safety and comfort to sort of wade into a space that feels uncertain. Beyond the rigid, reified perception of the Dalmatian. We can have the comfort to crawl into a space that's beyond what our mind is ordinarily comfortable with. To release the image of the Dalmatian and sort of trust in something beyond our knowing. To sort of trust the possibly more sacred dimension of reality that our brains doesn't ordinarily tap into. So the benefactor experience that can be a foundation to support us with that. So I'll stop there, and happy to just talk generally. We have about 10 minutes. Any questions you might have, or anything at all that you notice, maybe some aspect of this that's relevant to your life or your world in some way, I'd be happy to address anything that it might raise for you. Yes?
I apologize for coming late.
That's okay.
You are co-developer of the Sustainable Compassion Training Model. Did you explain, I think we experienced it today,
Yes.
and I really appreciate that
Yes.
very much, but did you give an overall context for the training model?
So I don't recall when you came in, but I did at the beginning give some background in terms of a kind of trajectory of contemplative practice, and we used the bell as a metaphor or
Yes.
sort of an example of how we can use an external resource like a bell or benefactor to initiate or tap into qualities of compassion. That's
Right.
kind of an initial step, and then the second step would be to notice how those qualities are actually available within our own experience. And that can then become a basis for extending care out to others.
Mhm.
So in that way, because we're tapping into and connecting with resources of safety and comfort and love that are available within our own being, it's more sustainable. And it's something we can recurrently reconnect with as needed to experience safety and love.
Right.
So that's kind of a very brief, quick way of summarizing that trajectory that's been called sustainable compassion training.
And is that something that you have developed as part of Mind and Life Institute research?
No, so the background on that, so my co-author and I, John McCransky is a professor of Buddhist studies, and also he was ordained as a lama in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So he has been working on ways of adapting practices from Tibetan Buddhism into a kind of like context where people from our culture could connect with it more readily. Also people from other spiritual and religious traditions can connect with it. Like from a Christian background, we can bring to mind God or Jesus or any saint or community of saints as benefactors. And my work, so I'm trained as a scientist in social psychology and also draw on developmental and cognitive psychology. There's a lot of ways in which aspects of those scientific traditions can give further frameworks or resources to help make sense of what's happening within the meditation practice. So I drew on some of that, like developmental psychology, evolutionary psychology, some experiments from visual science, just to help kind of say like, hey, there's these interesting features about what's happening within meditation. And that can help us to notice a little bit more of what's happening within meditation. And also give us a kind of conceptual framework that's from our own world experience and scientific worldview to engage it. So I found that kind of a fun way to communicate and make sense of meditation. So John and I have been, that's kind of the basis of the book, the sort of bridging together the contemplative and spiritual with scientific ways of thinking. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, just a comment. I'm reading, and I started keeping a journal of caring moments and benefactors throughout my lifespan. And one of the things really enjoyed is that when I intentionally try to conjure things up, I get a little, I get some feedback from within and some things. But at the oddest moments, when I'm kind of walking around town or parallel parking the car, something pops up in my head that's rich. And so I've taken to carrying a little pocketbook and pen with me to capture those moments, because they seem to be coming more now when I'm not intentionally trying to remember anything. They're kind of spontaneously popping up. So I just wanted to share that experience in case anyone else is going to start this practice. Carry a pen and paper with you.
Thank you.
It's been
Yeah,
really
thanks, Mike.
enjoyable.
I think it's, it can be quite fun to just notice. The more that we think about it and like through the book, kind of just immersing in the ideas, we can start to sort of notice how the brain is just starting to automatically pick up on things without having to work hard at it. We'll start to notice more of our life that we might have forgotten about. Yeah,
It's cool.
thank you. Yes.
I consider myself a failed meditator because when I have tried to have a time of day and be disciplined about it, especially in the morning, which
Yeah.
I hate to get up in the morning, I just have never stuck with it. But when that kind of thing happens naturally, then it's meaningful for me. And I was wondering if because I have friends who are very disciplined about meditation, and they're very committed to that discipline, and they feel that if you don't do that, you don't make progress. And I've never been able to do that. So I wondered if you have any comments about the discipline of meditation, or how, I know that it's beneficial.
Yeah, I think, so I used to do Zen practice for a long time, and the Zen, the particular style of Zen I was learning is pretty, much like what you're describing, really disciplined and really focused, especially on the specific body posture and really maintaining some rigidity and stability around that. And I loved it, but it's also kind of difficult. There's also, a lot of the material I'm drawing on and presenting from here also comes out of what's called the Dzogchen tradition in Tibetan Buddhism. And Dzogchen emphasizes something called short sessions many times, and looking for ways to kind of simplify and make it easy. So I think that's really important, and that inspires ways I often teach with people who are new to meditation, like with the bell thing. It doesn't need to be a 30-minute session where you're sitting in the same posture and never moving. It can just be we did that for maybe 5 minutes. It can be something brief and simple. So we can look for ways to make it simple, make it enjoyable, kind of make it easy. It doesn't need to be rigid and hard. I mean, the rigidity and the discipline can be really good and important, but if we're finding that we're just not able to do that, look for simple things like 5 minutes with the bell, or 5 minutes of connecting with a benefactor, or any kind of sense of things that feels nourishing for you. And there's some data, I don't know if it's been published, but I've heard it presented at conferences, that even doing it for 5 minutes each day, the pattern of repeating it regularly is more beneficial than doing long sessions intermittently. If we just do 5 minutes each day, like for a professor or teacher or like a healthcare worker where their time is really limited, just 5 minutes can be sufficient to increase well-being. So I think lowering the bar to make it simple. And I also think of it as I do a lot of physical therapy because I had some knee problems. So I found that thinking about meditation is similar to kind of weight training or resistance training is helpful, and that we start by just doing something really simple just to get our body kind of find the cues of what's the right muscle to engage, what to pay attention to. And then as we start to catch on to that, then we can do a little bit more. I think meditation is like that. So we can use the sound of the bell as a simple cue for just interrupting our ordinary experience and noticing a little bit of ease come through. And that's enough. And then we can repeat that. Repeat it again, again, and Yeah, and over time, we can start to stabilize it and do it for longer. Yes, over here.
I'd like to share something briefly. I've been meditating for about 30 years. Excuse my voice. And I've established a routine that I meditate in the mornings before my husband brings me tea for 5 or 10 minutes. And then in the late afternoon, I meditate also. Yeah, up to 20 minutes. And I don't always set the timer, but I've been doing it for many years, and I find it very, very helpful. Yeah. Sometimes my cat joins me. It makes it even better.
Yeah, thank you. And then there was another hand up here.
Years and years ago, when I was in medical practice, I used to use hypnosis a little bit, particularly with obstetric patients in labor. And, but I never got to the point where I hypnotized somebody to do something or
Yeah.
get them in care, but it just taught me self-hypnosis and progressive relaxation. At that time, we had a minister here who in neuro-linguistic training or something of that nature. But I think those are all sort of getting into the same state. It's if you have somebody in labor, for instance, and well, I haven't experienced labor, but I've certainly watched a lot of labor. The contraction is about 45 seconds, but the intensity of the contraction never stops. And then people start expecting it to get a twinge, and then it just keeps on going, and if you just shorten it, learning to shorten it down mentally was dramatic, and the labors progress so much better.
That is so helpful to me. I'm not a failed meditator after all, because I did that with every single pregnancy, and I did it, and it worked.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And,
No, we're not getting pregnant again.
I don't know how to describe it. Because
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a hypnotist, but that state, that mental state, is just very similar to what I was experiencing here.
Yeah, I think I find the benefactor concept interesting and helpful because it shows how many different possibilities exist that can help us to get into a kind of more relaxed state or way of being that, we usually use like a caring moment or a person, but even the bell is kind of a benefactor because it's interrupting our ordinary identification with thought or with pain, and that sort of increases the intensity of pain. It's interrupting that for a moment. We could also use even just the feeling of sitting in a chair and noticing the support of the chair as a kind of benefactor, or walking out into if yesterday was really beautiful, walking out and just seeing the sky for a moment kind of interrupts our thought. And so it could be that hypnosis technique that you're describing, or the sort of memory that you were describing, the possibilities are limitless. We can notice all kinds of things in our world that are helping just distract us just briefly. And it's not actually a distraction, it's actually allowing our sort of sense of calm and ease and peace come forward more readily. So I'll just give one last example, and then we're at time. I'm also happy to stick around if people have more questions, but I want to honor that there is a time that was set for the end. There was one day when I was sitting and trying to meditate, and it was just I was having a stressful day, so I was having a hard time getting into it. And I was maybe sitting there for 5 or 10 minutes and just, feeling distracted. And then my neighbor's table saw went off. And it was just like that, it just interrupted all of the thoughts and perceptions, and I was able to then just relax and be at peace in meditation. So my neighbor's table saw was my benefactor in that moment. Little simple things like that.
These girls lower.
That's the opposite for me.
So, should we wrap it up, or yeah?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
committee that did this, we would really like feedback from
Oh,
you.
Evaluation forms.
The
every
evaluation
table.
forms are on each table. You would fill those out.
There was also, I made some handouts, and there might not be copies for everybody, but there's some floating around that has some information.
Mine, and it's